let me come now to this work that we've done and has been used in Cardano among most notably. This is joint work with Lan Brunis, Ilias Koutsoukias, and Katerina Stuka. And it's a work that appeared last year, or published last year, I should say. It was available for some time as a technical report. So that's a reward scheme which is bimodal, as I mentioned. It has two parameters, K and alpha. In that system, prospective operators register themselves by declaring their operational cost and profit margin. They become committed to operate and provide rewards via a smart contract. And now stakeholders can delegate their stake to these operators that form these pools. And delegated operator rewards are guaranteed by this smart contract. And this is another way that we remove the friction in these pooling configurations. So the bimodal operation here again means that the stakeholders can take two actions on chain: declare and run a node, or delegate to a node. So let me come now to the semantics and the function of these parameters, K and alpha. So K controls the number of operators. And the plan here is that the incentives of the system should be tuned so that in a completely rational environment, there will be K operators that each one has delegated or total stake 1/K of the total available. On the other hand, the parameter alpha will provide protection against Sybil behavior, and I'll come to explain how this is done. But let me start with some more detail about how the K parameter works. So the K parameter is a soft cap on the operator size. So the K parameter will cap the operator's rewards so that they are linear up to a point, but when the operator reaches the 1/K of total resources, it will become flat afterwards. So it won't make sense for an operator or a pool to grow more than that. Now observe that if we were to mimic the Bitcoin operation, effectively this means that there's no soft cap. So K equals 1. And what happens there is that you can very easily show that the system immediately centralizes to one pool. In fact, the real operation of Bitcoin, which is off-chain, just exhibits a very small number of pools needed to reach 51% of total resources controlled. And actually, there were times in the history of Bitcoin that there are pools that reached or exceeded the 50% barrier. Now, for values bigger than K, what we prove is that the system has an equilibrium of K equally sized pools. And the system converges to that, assuming no externalities. I'll come to the effect of the alpha parameter actually in the next slide, but let me just tell you a little bit about what happens in the real world execution of this system in Cardano. The current setting is K equals 500. And the way that the pools have organized themselves, at least in June 21, you can see it in the bottom right diagram. So this basically shows you this dotted horizontal line is the saturation limit, the soft cap that I mentioned. And what you see in the blue shaded part is the pools starting from the one that is the largest going to the smallest. So as you see, the perfect equilibrium predicts a rectangle, which is exactly at the saturation level. And what we have in the real game operation is something which is close to that. There's a long tail that is a triangle that is missing, let's say, from the upper right of the rectangle. The actual number of pools in Cardano is like close to more than 2,500 at the moment, with a very tiny amount of stake, of course, at the very end of this tail. So if that's the K parameter, what's the alpha parameter doing? Now think as an operator to understand what's the use of that. If you are in this soft cap environment and you say, I'm very popular, so why should I just have one pool? I can make many. And this is a type of Sybil behavior, and it would be a Sybil behavior if you try to hide the fact that you're operating many pools, or it can be like just a pool splitting behavior or a multiple pool behavior if you just do it openly. Now, of course, this is undesirable. If this happens, you may get K pools at equilibrium, but it turns out that there is the same entity that is controlling many of them. So we haven't achieved much. And this is where the alpha parameter comes into play. When you declare a pool, you can also pledge some stake with it. Now, that's different than delegating. So pledging comes with a much bigger opportunity loss. The way our system is bimodal says the following: delegation has almost no opportunity loss. You're not going to get bonded, you're not going to get friction, you can always move away from a pool, but pledging has opportunity loss. So that's a fundamental difference between pledging and delegating. And pledging now is going to create the following effect. It's going to make it, we will use it to increase the rewards for those pools that have a higher pledge. And this will make it less profitable to run many pools. So this is the first way that we can mitigate this type of Sybil attacks. Nevertheless, even though this alpha parameter, the bigger it is, the better it is for Sybil attack mitigation, it also increases the potential disparity between rich and poor operators. So poor operators at the onset, before they become successful, they will be at a disadvantage. So that's why, and that's the same thing we do in Cardano, we do not choose a very big alpha value, and we also rely on community filtering. So basically, users that delegate, they are informed about the downsides of Sybil attacks and running multiple pools, and they may choose themselves not to delegate to those pools. So this gives an idea about, this graphic shows a little bit how the scheme works, the reward sharing scheme works. So the reward sharing scheme takes a pie, which is all the rewards, and splits them into two parts. The left is the gray part, and the right is the purple part. Now, every pool is going to get a slice from both parts. This is the blue slices that you see. And now these blue slices will come together. They will cover the cost of the pool operator. The pool operator can slice another profit margin from that combined slice, which is the green part that you see on the upper right. And finally, the remaining blue part will go to the delegates. So that's how the system works. And I guess also subject, of course, to the condition that we said about this soft cap. Now, this is actually an explanation of the formula that implements the graphic of the previous slide. It's not worth going into it right now because there is, smaller details here that are important. Understanding of the system, but this is the exact formula that determines the rewards of the pool. Perhaps the only thing I would like to point out here is that, as you see on the left side of this formula, there is a performance factor that multiplies the whole number of rewards that go to a pool. And this basically means that underperforming pools will have the rewards adjusted. So for instance, if your pool operator server goes down, the performance factor is going to be affected, and then you're going to start losing rewards. And if you lose rewards, you're going to lose delegates. And if you lose delegates, then your node is not going to be elected as often to run the protocol.